Hi, my name is Alex Kirby, and we've got an awesome clinic talk in store for you today. But before we get started, if you could do me two favors, if you could like and subscribe to the channel, we'd really appreciate it. That would just help us reach more coaches. Before we get started, this video is brought to you by throwdeeppublishing.com. This week, we've actually released a brand new 6-part series from Ferris State offensive line coach Sam Parker, who's going to break down their entire offensive scheme that led them to the D2 National Championship this past season. And we've got a link to that in the description below. And so if you're new around here, you can get 20% off your first order with the promo code YouTube20. And whether or not you're using that on the video or anything that we got here at Throw Deep Publishing. Today we've got Coach George Pachucy. And I had to ask him how to say that name before we got started. But Coach, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what program you're involved with and all that good stuff.
Sounds great, Coach. So today we're going to talk just a little bit about what we do with the old school buck sweep. A couple of RPOs that we threw off of it this year that we've had some pretty good success with. Like Coach said, my name is George Pachucy. I am from just outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, so I've heard every office joke that you could possibly imagine. And just a little bit about me, but I came from a football family. So my dad was a coach for 30 plus years. I think it's almost 40 plus years now. And he was actually the head coach at the high school that I coach at now. So it was really cool. I kind of grew up on those sidelines. So it's a really cool thing to be back now coaching there where he kind of played and coached and everything. But he also spent 20 years at Lackawanna College, which is arguably one of the most famous junior college programs in the country. They have a ton of kids that they put into the league every year. So I kind of grew up in the coach's office with these like NFL guys just sort of walking around and college coaches coming in all the time. So he spent time there as a quarterbacks and tight ends coach, and we still have a great relationship with Lackawanna College. I played football at Susquehanna University, which is a D3 school in central Pennsylvania. I got hurt my second year in after my sophomore season, and they asked me to join the staff. So I was the assistant quarterbacks coach for a year. And then my senior year, they were like, "You want to coach the tight ends?" And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds great." So I started pretty much full time my senior year. I went out on the road and everything and shadowed guys in recruiting. And then the next year we had a new staff come in, head coach by the name of Tom Perkovich, who's still there at Susquehanna. He hired me as the quarterbacks coach then in 2016, and I spent one season there with him. And then I took a little break from coaching. So my family also owns a business that they needed some help with back home, and I came home, and I'm also a musician that went out and played a bunch of music kind of out throughout the whole country. And really when the pandemic hit, there was a weird series of events. So Mid-Valley's head coach resigned. One of my dad's former players took over the program and called me and was like, "Hey, we want you to come on, we want you to coach. You could call the offense." And I was like, well, with everything going on, I don't really know what I'm going to be able to do, what I'm not going to be able to do with the business and the band and everything. So how it ended up working out was you couldn't do anything. One of the only things you could do in the state of PA was play football. So we took over. And what happened our first year, obviously it was just a shortened season because of COVID. But that first year, we were like, okay, because I don't know where I'm going to be, we're going to use kind of the system that was sort of there. And really what ended up happening is I felt like John Gruden, and I know it's probably a terrible thing to say now, but the play calls were coming in from the sideline. They were like sentences long. So our kids were like looking at us like, what are you doing? It's like that clip when Chris Sims couldn't say it in the huddle and he kept forgetting it over and over and over again. So we made some improvements from the 2019 season. I think they were averaging only 180 yards per game and less than 15 points per game. And, so we brought that up to 245, 15, 5.1 yards per play, which is all fine and good, but we lost 6 games. We won 1. So really we were not where we wanted to be as a program. So at the end of the season, we sat back and took a look, and we were like, okay, what could we do better? How can we improve things? And really what we did was we went scorched earth. We scrapped everything that we did from a system standpoint, from a terminology standpoint, and we started back right to basics. And I mean right to basics. And Like, we had all of our kids in week 1 of the off season when they were coming in lifting. We actually had them take like a remedial football course. Like, we had kids who didn't know what the hash marks were, or one of our players asked us what 2nd and 7 meant. And, so we're trying to talk about combos on inside zone or getting back to a back or whatever it might be. And you really don't realize what the kids don't know until you're kind of in there. So we went back and retaught a lot of that stuff. And I think we helped our kids to learn football better, right? And it's like you could see the difference. We increased over 100 yards per game, 10 more points per game. We were averaging 8.5 or 8.56 yards per carry. We really had a tremendous year. 9-3 was the best record the program had in just over 30 years. So that's where we are right now as a team, and we're kind of happy that it seems to be moving in the right direction. Now, I always kind of make the joke, we are the slowest no-huddle team in America. So when we made this, this big kind of thing that we were coming out and being like a spread team, quote unquote, I said, we are going to be the slowest no-huddle team in America. Here's why. Our roster size, we have about on any given day, 30 to 40 kids on the team. Like, so our first year, our last game of the season, we dressed 20 kids. I was playing scout team quarterback, and believe me, my shoulders don't work nearly the way that they used to anymore. And then the last season, 2021, we ended up with, I think, 28 kids on the active roster. And this year at lifting, we have more. We're up closer to 40. But for the most part, we're about 30 kids, give or take. And I'm sure that there's a million teams in the country that deal with the same sort of problems. But in reality, we were probably only playing 15 of those kids. Maybe they were varsity level kids. And we got really lucky. We had some unbelievable talent. Like the point guard for the basketball team was our quarterback. He came out and he just kind of had it, whatever it was. Like, he was just making plays. We had a great running back. We had 3 great receivers. We had a great O-line. Like, it was just a good year. It was a good year to have kids. But when we made the switch to the no-huddle, it wasn't about trying to get more plays per game. It's actually about trying to save our kids, because what we were realizing was we would huddle up, call a play. We would break out of the huddle, so the receivers would run, another 50 yards out. Then they would run like go patterns and then run back to the huddle and then do it again and then do it again. And then on defense, they would do the same things. They were playing both ways, right? So it didn't make sense. So we were trying to save stamina. We were trying to eliminate wasted movement. And then we would go as fast as humanly possible in practice, right? So you would actually see on our film, our quarterback would be looking to the sideline like, let's go. And we're holding the call because they were so used to going quickly in practice. We went from being able to run 20 plays in team to now being able to run 40 plays in team. So when we're talking about kids who maybe didn't have experience or needed reps in a new system, we're actually doubling our output. And we created this, I think, mentality of we don't want to think, we just want to play. So when we started designing this system, I was like, how are we going to make this simple for our kids, right? Like I said before, we had kids who didn't know what hash marks were. We had kids who didn't know what 2nd and 7 was. How can we make this simple? So I went to Josh Pardini, who is the OC offensive line coach at Lackawanna College, and he is a stud, man. He is like one of the best coaches I've been around in terms of just technique and scheme, and he's always like on the cutting edge of everything. And he gave us this system, and he has a whole clinic on the system. I'm not going to go super far into it. And I'm sure everybody has heard of a version of the point system, but the way he did it was just so simple. And our kids picked up on it like snap. So he has this system that they only identify 3 fronts. So they identify odd, bare, and even. And everything fits into that somehow. Everything. Every single run fit fits into those 3 fronts. And what it did was it allowed them to play super fast. Now, we're not worried about playing super fast, but now we're eliminating mental mistakes because we're all speaking the same language. If I talk about an odd front to any of my linemen or any of my quarterbacks, they go, an odd front is the center is covered and the 2 guards are uncovered. If I say, great, what's a bare front? They go, bare front, center's covered, and both guards are covered. Awesome. What about an even front? They'll literally say, coach, an even front is anything else. And that's true. If the center's covered and 1 guard's covered, that's even. If the center's not covered and both guards are covered, that's even, right? And most of our teams that we see are even. And then his point system, which we'll kind of go into later, I have a couple diagrams to show you we can kind of get into, but it simplified that process, and it also helped our kids learn football, right? So now when we're talking about an odd front, they have something to reference to go back to when we're talking about it. They have a set of rules to kind of anchor themselves in. So that was really helpful, and it simplified everything for us. It simplified everything. We carry 6 runs and 6 protections, so it should be very, very simple for the offensive line, right? It should, really nothing changes for them on any given time. 6 runs, 6 protections, so they need to know a total of 12 plays. That's it. I mean, 24, I guess, if you have to go both ways. But we have 2 sets of runs. One set is zone runs, so that is essentially everybody's blocking an area. And then we have a section called map runs, which are man and or gap runs. So you're either blocking a man or you're blocking a gap as you're going through. And buck sweep would definitely fit in our map category. Now, because we're so simple up front, we put a ton on our quarterbacks, a ton. Now, we were really lucky. So our freshman quarterback for the last 2 years is our head coach's son. So he's around for everything. He does everything. He's in all the meetings and everything, and he gets it. He was actually signaling plays in for us last year. Our starting quarterback this year, who was our backup last year, he has a work ethic probably better than some of the kids I coached in college at that level. So they are constantly at meetings. I mean, we meet twice a week. We work out twice a week in addition to their regular stuff, because there's so much that goes into this, especially from their perspective. So we definitely make sure that our quarterback knows what they're doing and is able to kind of guide the offense and help the offensive line out in a lot of situations. So our quarterback's actually helping the line identify the front and also helping our line identify the front. Now, buck sweep in general.
Hey, Coach.
For us, it's
real quick. So that's all awesome stuff. Just for those of us who aren't in your state, basically, how much off-season time do you get to put in that kind of stuff? How much of that was put in the off-season versus fall camp?
Sure thing. Yeah, great. So we pretty much right after the season, and I'm not really sure how everyone does it in PA. This is pretty much how we do it. We take about a month off, and then we get back into lifting. So pretty much the whole month of December is just our kids kind of getting back into the weight room. Now, there are very flexible rules in Pennsylvania in terms of what you're actually allowed to do with your players. Now, you cannot have a padded practice. You cannot, go out and run full 11-on-11 drills, right? But we are allowed pretty much at any time to be like, hey, if the field's clear, let's go out and throw routes, or let's go out and install something, right? There's really no limitations on that. So usually that first month of December is just getting back in the weight room. Let's get them back in shape. January, February, right before we head into that spring sports season, whoever's not playing basketball at our school is generally back in the weight room. Like, we are consistently having about 30 varsity players in our weight room this time of year. Like, it's almost like clockwork, anywhere between 30 and 40. So what we do is every day we split up into 2 groups, and we essentially rotate between 2 stations. So in one of our locker rooms, we actually have a rollout turf pad that we could do footwork and agility drills kind of, and we've done line combo block drills inside, and then the other group is lifting. And usually what we do is we'll break this up into like, okay, we're going to do 20 minutes of board work and then 25 minutes of like footwork or drills that would relate back to what we did on the board. So we're actually going through right now and installing a bunch of our offense as we're kind of lifting and going through. So we actually install it once in this winter session. Then we'll install it again in between probably June and July. We go 4 days a week over the summer where we're allowed to be in contact with our kids. We essentially could practice as long as we're not padded. We could be in helmets for all the practices. And then we'll install it a third time in camp in August. So they'll hear this entire install sequence 3 times as we're kind of going. Obviously, really the only limitation is we can't be in full pads until August, but everything else is pretty much full up. But that's, in Pennsylvania, you get a lot of time.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, Coach.
Yeah, no problem. I know it's different. I was talking to Alex Harrell, Coach Harrell, and I believe he was out in Missouri, and he's like, we get no contact. I was like, that would be very difficult for me to kind of go. So buck sweep, and the reason that I thought buck sweep might be an interesting thing is, one thing I probably should have mentioned earlier. My dad played at Delaware for Tubby Rate. Okay, so he is like, he's probably the most old school guy that we have, and he's actually a freshman coach on our staff now. So he kind of came out of retirement to coach with us. But I feel like some version of buck sweep or truck or whatever, you might want to call it, this double pull play. It's in almost everybody's offense. Obviously it's in the Delaware. You see it on Sundays all the time, whether or not they're pulling the two guards, it's essentially the same play. Everybody's running some version of this, right? And it's a pretty simple play to me. That's why we like it. But really the thing that makes it work for us is that the rules and the assignments are the same for all three fronts. So we block odd, bare, and even. Nothing really changes for us. Yeah, the assignment might change a little bit, but essentially it's the same play. We're pinning and we're pulling. Now, we always pull our guards. Okay, we always pull our guards. Our center would not be able to snap and pull. Just the reality of the situation. Maybe in a situation where we did have a center who could do that, yeah, sure, I could see the benefit of it. But really, we could pull both of our guards almost all the time. Now, one of the biggest things that Josh Pardini imparted to me when I was kind of taking his ID system and everything was, I don't overteach anything. And I went, what do you mean? And he's like, some guys will be like, oh, you got to skip pull and every pull should look the same and you got to do this. And he's like, what if you have a kid that can't skip pull, right? Are you going to make him skip pull or not play him because he can't do it that way? He's like, no. So the way that we teach this is pretty simple. On the snap of the ball, both guards are going to open up and get their shoulders to the sideline. And then they're going to sprint as fast as humanly possible and turn up as tight as possible off of the tight end. Okay? And the second puller should follow the path of the first puller. Really almost like the first puller's cleaning and the second puller's leading as we're kind of going through. And really, I'm always afraid to say that, the don't overteach when I'm doing a clinic or talk is, some coach out there is going to be like, oh, he's not detailed, he's not thorough. And it's like, it's not really what I'm talking about. I'm just not going to make a kid do something he can't do physically, right? So we'll start working these pulls really right now, kind of in the season as we're sort of going. Now, sweep is not the first run that we put in. We put an inside zone first, and then we put an outside zone, and then we put all of our gap scheme in. And that's not because sweep isn't one of our best plays. It is one of our best plays, but because it's so hard to teach a high school kid when you're blocking inside zone. So we block the fit. We don't block the front on zone. So we are step right, tracks to the right, no matter what. And so many times last year, inside zone was a bad play for us because we had one guy go the wrong way chasing someone. So from our look at it, we need as many reps on those zone concepts as we could. These man concepts are a little bit easier for our kids to grab. But come March, when we can get back outside and our track is cleared off and we have a little bit more room, we start working all of our pull game. So we'll work our power pulls, we'll work our counter pulls, we'll work our buck sweep pulls. Now, another thing that Josh told me about offensive line play that we definitely carried over is as many different things that we can carry over from one play to the next carry over. So, for instance, when we're teaching our tight end how to essentially base block the guy in front of him, that's the same block as inside zone. He's essentially blocking inside zone right or left, depending on which way buck sweep is going. Right? The pin blocks, we use those exact same blocks on all of our power and counter items and menu plays. Our backside tackle is gap seal hinging. He's responsible for the B gap and sealing off any inside out pressure. Right? So as many things as we could reteach or reuse in our concepts is definitely what we're trying to do. And we want our kids to make mistakes at full speed. Okay? We want them to go as fast as humanly possible. And if you're going to whiff or miss somebody, it should look bad. It should look like you really missed someone because you want those big time hits when you're out, one-on-one with someone. And if that means you whiff one or two times, it means you whiff one or two times. But that to me means you're going full speed. You're giving out max effort. And the thing that I like about buck sweep, especially in our system, is we put our fullback or our wing or our other tight end, however you want to call it, we'll move him all over the place, right? So you can do a lot with a little without changing the full structure of the play. Now, here's some statistics about buck sweep for us this past year. We called it without an RPO 38 times. We were efficient 68% of the time. 37% of the time we had an explosive play, which is more than 15 yards up the field, and we had 6 touchdowns on it. With the RPO, we ran that 24 times with the called pass tag on it. Our RPO read was 100%. We did not make a single mistake on an RPO read the entire year, which I thought was pretty cool. So we were 100% on that. 80% completion on the RPOs, and we were efficient 67% of the time. 25% of the time we had explosive plays gaining more than 15 yards. Efficient plays for us are any plays that netted us more than 3.333 yards per play. So our offensive philosophy is we want to get first downs. I'm an old West Coast guy. When I played in college, Nate Millen, who's now the head coach at Muhlenberg, we ran the old school West Coast. Like it was like we had checks, kills, cans, everything that was involved in it. And we just moved the ball methodically down the field. So I definitely take that to heart now with what we do. And it's definitely a part of our system. Now, some of the things that we do with the fullback, and I'm going to show this little diagram here before we move on to actually looking at it against a different team. We could line him up and pretty much, we could run this without a fullback, first of all. And we have done that to a regular, 2x1 attached formation, or we've done it to a nub trips formation where, we were tagging like an RPO on stick to the 3 receiver side and then running buck back to the tight end side. But really, we were able to do some cool things. We have a good fullback. He's a tough kid. He plays linebacker, likes to hit people. So sometimes if we were playing a team that had a great defensive end, one of the schools that we play, Lakeland High School, they have a defensive end. His brother plays at Maryland. He already has 5 Division I offers. And I only have one kid on my team who could block that kid. Only one. So we needed to find a way to work. So what we did was in that game, we put a wing to him. And we told the wing, hey, forget about your normal buck rules. You're just double teaming him. Right. So you can see that little diagram there. You can put him on the wing and a double team most dangerous player. Now, in a perfect world, we're almost running our buck sweep like the old Packer sweep. Right. In a perfect world, I'd like to line him up at fullback and get 3 guys going to the outside. OK, that's in a perfect world. Now, does that happen? Yeah, sometimes it does, but other times it doesn't. Now, in our first playoff game, OK, our best lineman got hurt. So I had to put a kid in that guard who didn't take a snap at guard pretty much the whole year. He was like a tight end. We had to move him in. It's a whole big thing, right? So what we did, we actually lined up in, tight end and wing to the backside, not even a wing, just kind of like a ghost wing off of where the tight end would be. And we literally told him anytime we're running sweep, let's say right in this case, you're just the cleanup. Like if somebody gets through, like just get in their way. So he's not even leading. He's kind of just helping almost on the backside. Now, one of the big things about us, and I'm going to go into actually diagramming this against a couple of our own sets here, is that we never block the backside inside linebacker, ever. I'm reading him, or I'm betting that my kid is faster than that kid, okay? And you might be like, well, coach, he could just shoot the backside B gap, or, front side B gap, or, maybe he could chase him down. If he's catching up to my kid in the backfield that quickly, I need to be throwing an RPO off that. And I will know that based off of watching film that week before, whether or not I could call buck without an RPO tag on it, right? So we played Scranton Prep. It's actually, I graduated from Scranton Prep, but they're one of the best schools in the state of PA. They fell to Wyomissing in the state quarters this year. They have a running back, London Montgomery, who has had 12 Division I offers. They're legit, right? And we were playing them, and I was like, man, we can't line up and run buck sweep because that guy was faster than our guy in the backfield, right? So we always had an RPO tagged when we played them. Now, here's the reason we don't block him, okay? My backside tackle. Right now, we have one kid. He's 6'5", 270. He's getting some 1AA interest. He's legit. Right? If I told him, hey, you have to go chase that backer and get him, right? 10 out of 10 times that kid's getting blocked, okay? My other tackle, my right tackle, is our center from this past year, right? who cannot do that, right? So I can't be like, okay, on buck sweep right, where you go get him, and on buck sweep left, no, you stay, right? So we made it a universal rule that we're letting that guy go, right? And I have to make it right as a play caller, or my quarterback has to make it right based off of what he's seeing or what he's reading, right? So once again, I ask my quarterback to do a lot. This is something that he knows day one. On buck sweep, I'm reading the minus. So this goes back to Josh's system. So the point is always the play side inside linebacker. The plus is the next linebacker outside. The double plus is the next defender outside of that, right? And then the backside of the play, away from the play, we have the minus and the double minus. So our receivers know, our base receiver blocking rule is, hey, you have to go get the double plus or the double minus. So if my X is out there and we're in this pro formation and he sees that there's an overhang backer in that, that apex area or whatever field area that might be, whatever you want to call it, he knows that's his responsibility to go get him if there's no RPO tag. Okay. And that's how we communicate, right? That's how we communicate everything. Now, in a perfect world, right? Like in our play diagram of this, we say, okay, the first guard is coming out and he should get the plus, and the second guard is coming out and he should wrap back in for the point, and then the fullback should kind of just lead and get most dangerous. But the play is so fluid, right? The play is so fluid that sometimes our guard gets out there before the fullback, or sometimes our backside guard gets caught up in something and the fullback ends up picking up the point, right? So towards the end of the year last year, we were kind of just like, just go and block somebody. Like, as simple as that sounds, like, just get out there and block someone. So sometimes, like, I'll be watching the film and it's like, okay, technically, maybe we weren't assignment perfect, right? But we're all blocking somebody, right? And as long as we're blocking somebody, we're doing okay. Now, the big crux to the plan here is you need to have fantastic pin blocks. They have to be great, because if you're playing someone up front who is better than you are, which in some cases last year we were, right? Our 2 playoff games, the other team was definitely better than us up front. The biggest thing that we're teaching on any type of pin block, all right, is I want to put my nose on the shoulder pad, the near shoulder pad of the defender. Okay, so I want to put essentially the middle of my body onto the middle of his shoulder. It should almost look like that as you're kind of going in. And here's the reason why. I want to make him go around my body. Either way, right? So if he comes right, I want him to actually have to fight through my left shoulder as I'm going to pin him back. If he goes left, I want him to have to go through my full body to get through it, right? And you'll see, a couple times our pin blocks probably weren't the best on a couple of the clips that we're going to be showing, but their aiming point is usually pretty correct, right? It's usually pretty correct. We're trying to get the head right to that shoulder pad as we're kind of coming across. Backside, it gets a little messy. We call it gap seal hinge. So really what we're teaching our backside tackle is, as he's getting down in his stance, he's essentially going to take an inside zone step to the right, and he's going to block the B gap. If somebody charges the B gap, he should engage that guy and drive him up the field. Just base block him, really. If nobody comes to the B gap, right, he's essentially going to hinge back like it's sprint out and get anything dangerous coming from the outside in. Okay? 9 times out of 10, especially playing an even front team, right, that end back there is kind of just going to hang out. So he's going to play that C gap. He's going to gap seal hinge down, and we're essentially going to pass pro that guy right out of the play. Now, the reason that I like buck sweep with RPO, it takes a long time to develop. All right? You have 2 pullers running horizontally to get back up the field. We're pinning everywhere else, right? It takes a long time. So we probably got flagged, I don't know, maybe 4 times last year for having illegal receivers downfield, right? And that's going to happen when you're an RPO team. But most of those calls came on inside zone, because our rules on inside zone say if there's no one in your gap, you keep climbing to block your gap. Right. So in this particular look in inside zone, our left tackle here, if this were inside zone right, he would be on his tracks up the field, especially if this guy didn't cross his face. He's just kind of duck walking up the field. right? So of course he's going to be 7 yards downfield by the time you throw the ball. On Buck, you don't have that because it takes so long for those guys to get out there. You have a little bit more time to actually make a couple throws. You could throw in a ton of different reads off this.
Hey, Coach. Real quick, I want to backtrack just a second. This is fantastic stuff, by the way. I just had a question. You said earlier you put a lot on your quarterback, and you like to keep things simple for the offensive line. Who's making the count? Who's making the calls of the count at the line? Is that something where your quarterback's like making a mic declaration like you see in the NFL all the time, or are guys communicating with each other? And obviously in high school, you're not going to see necessarily a million looks, so maybe it's easier. You know what you're going to get running into the game, but how does that work for you guys?
Sure thing. So when I was going to say break the huddle, but when we get to the line, right, the first thing that our quarterback is doing, so our offensive line does not look for signals from the sideline. Okay, so those 5 guys, they get over the ball, they get a break for 30 seconds, let's say. Quarterback receives signals from the sideline, receivers get aligned. The first thing we're telling him to do is check formation alignment. Make sure everybody is aligned in the proper spot. Second thing we're telling him to do is code the play to the OL. So if we're running buck right, buck sweep right, this is not how we code it, obviously, but we would say buck right, and, the line would kind of get down. The center would then go even. If the quarterback agrees that it's an even call, he'll say it back to the line, right? So they cannot start the play until they have already discussed what the front is, right? So center will go, in this case, odd, quarterback would go odd. And then the roles kind of flip. The quarterback goes, say Sam is wearing number 7, right? And he's the point. They'll go 7-7, 7-7. And then our center will go 7-7, 7-7. Now, if we're playing a team that continuously lines up in an even front, right? We'll probably stop making that declaration after the first series because we know who it is. And then we would only redeclare, re-identify the front if it changed, right? So, if, let's say most of our teams were 4-2, 4-2-5, whatever we want to call it. We'll know that going in, right? We know that they're probably not going to come out of it. Like the one team we played in the playoffs, they are an odd front 100% of the time, right? So every play we didn't go out and declare the mic, but the quarterback has absolute authority when it comes to changing anything at the line, changing an ID, changing a point, because here's the thing. Our O-line doesn't know. We never tell our O-line if it's an RPO or if it's just a straight run. They don't know. So it's all up to the quarterback. It's like 100% up to the quarterback. So if for whatever reason our quarterback said, no, I want the rover to be the point now, and he ID'd the guy who's actually the plus in this diagram, we would just roll with it. Like he would just read the Sam then, and hypothetically in that case. So the communication, and one of the first things that our assistant coaches had trouble with was like, well, that seems like it's super complex. And it's really not when you kind of get down to it, because it's just like, we're just pointing out the play side inside linebacker on every play, right? And now the problem with it is that it's always the play side inside. So if you're playing us, so if anybody's watching who play us, right, and you see us pointing to the right, like we're probably running the ball to the right. And, towards the end of the year, we had bluffs, and our kid would point different way and do different things. But yeah, that's all on the QB. So the line is really just getting the play call and the front and the ID and the snap count, and that's it. And then we're running the play. And one of the things that we noticed, like if we were calling this in our old system, like from the first year we took over, this would have been green 48 Packer. And if we wanted to call an RPO on it, we would be like, X Lion, X Panther, X Glance, whatever you want to call it, right? And our O-line would be like, well, what's green X Panther? Like, what does that mean? And we were like, you know what? No, we're just going to tell them the run play. So now all they hear is, oh, buck sweep right. Okay, buck sweep right. I got to get buck sweep right. And we rep that literally from day one. Like we actually just had a walkthrough the other day where we put in some of this stuff with, some of the new kids coming up. And from day one, like you could hear our center like screaming it in the school gym, like even, boys 14, boys, and it's like you can hear it all throughout the school, right? So we just kind of get used to it. But yeah, it's really like a whole communication thing down. But the quarterback runs that whole show. And, you know, people think I'm crazy when I say this, but we let our kids check to whatever they want. My quarterback has 100% freedom at the line of scrimmage to check whatever he wants to check to at any time. Doesn't matter the situation, doesn't matter the play. He can check to anything he wants at any time. And that, for us, was like a big trust thing. Like, I'm spending, you know, so we lift 3 days a week, and we're meeting 2 separate days plus working out 2 separate days. I'm with these kids 5 days a week for like a couple hours a day. I know their families. I know their sisters and their brothers. And like, we're as close as you could possibly be, in my opinion, as a coach and a player could be. And if he's seeing something out on that field that I am not seeing, right, I trust him. And, you know, one of our big things last year was there was 1 or 2 times where we got burnt on it, and it was like a bad check or a bad call. And, you know, we rode with it because in our playoff game, to win the first school playoff game in like 30 years or something like that, we were on our own 6-yard line, and they checked to a fade route and he hit a 96-yard touchdown because they knew he could burn the kid. And it's like, when you trust your kids to do that, that's kind of what ends up happening. So yeah, the quarterback runs the whole show. Essentially, the O-line is just making the front ID. So they'll make the front ID, quarterback will make the point ID. And, you know, if there's something wrong, like, he's like the checker, you know? So if it's like, if they call odd and it's really Bear, he'll be like, no, easy, it's Bear, because, you know, kind of point it out. So Bear's really the only one that would force us to check out of something, because when that cylinder's covered on the inside, like some gap scheme stuff, very, very, very difficult to run. Power and counter are really bad in terms of that. So usually if we see a Bear cylinder, we're like, okay, you know, we got to run, you know, zone or outside zone, or we could run buck out of it too.
That's awesome. Great stuff, Coach. Thanks
for that. That makes a lot more sense.
Yep, no problem. I probably should have led with that. It's good to know. So once again, the nice part about buck, you see it here against odd, you know, and then we'll shift over and we'll take a look at it against Bear in a second here. So Bear, once again, for us, means that the center and the 2 guards are covered. In this particular situation, we're also leaving an additional man for the quarterback that will, on the backside, if he came, technically the quarterback could pull it and run with it if he wanted to, mostly because that guy would still be the receiver's responsibility to go in and block him. It's almost impossible for that to happen, obviously, on the line of scrimmage. He could short motion or shift in if he wanted to, but, you know, we're not counting on that in most perspectives here. So our backside tackle in this case would essentially just block the man in the B gap there. So that end, he would just block him in the B gap. And then the way that we're most commonly used to running it is going to be against this even front right here. And, you know, I would say 90% of the teams that we play are in some form of even front a good portion of the game. You know, there's always those 1 or 2 schools in high school that are way above everybody else. Like the 2 schools in our area, or 3 schools really in our area that are like that are Dunmore, Lakeland, and Scranton Prep. And it's like, you know, you see those teams on the schedule and you're like, oh my gosh, like Dunmore had like 17 different blitzes that they ran one year. And I was like, I don't know how anybody has time to game plan for any of this. So, but it's really, you know, this ID system, it keeps everything universal. It helps our kids recognize who's playing what and where they should be. It helps our receivers identify their alignments a lot of the time. You know, like our X will be like, hey, you know, if I see that double minus kind of, you know, really tight, I know I have to cut my split to go get him. Now, we probably, you know, the whole year, I don't know if we ran this one time out of a pro set like this. I really don't. If it were one time, that might be a lot. Now, we draw up everything out of this pro set because really our theory on it is our freshman level, our sub-varsity level, we want to make sure that the concept of the play is what's being mastered. We don't care about the formation. We don't care if it's under center or shotgun or if it has all the bells and whistles. I want to know if the kids coming from our 7th and 8th grade and freshman program or our JV program could tell me, or even better than tell me, actually do what we need to do on buck sweep, right? So our freshman team is going to be in the I formation or split backs in the gun most of the time, right? And that's just the easiest way for them to get the play in and run the play and run their offense. Now, we were probably in 11 personnel, I don't know, 80% of the time last year. So a little bit different when they get to the varsity level, but everything's drawn up out of this, old school, pretty much 2-back set as we're kind of going. So now I have a couple clips of film that we'll kind of walk through here. And I could talk through some of the play calls here. So our number one set here that we ran buck out of this year was definitely wing or wing slot. So here we're in wing slot, and this was a huge call for our RPO. So double slant out of this was really good for us. Slant flat was really good for it. For us out of this, and I'm sure every team in America, like the school we're actually playing in this clip, is a diehard Delaware team, right? They run the old school Delaware WingT, and they come out against us and they shift into the shotgun into this exact formation and run this play on the first drive. So everybody could use this in their offense. It's a very easy play. So in this concept, we have sweep coming to the right, and then we have double slant back on the left side. Now, another thing that a reason that I love buck sweep for RPO, another reason I love buck sweep for RPO, you get pulling guards. What do linebackers do when guards pull? They follow them, whether they're supposed to or not. They follow the guards, right? So you're getting some sort of hesitation. You're putting someone in conflict, and I know like that's the big thing online. Like, oh, who are we putting in conflict on this play? And it's like,
yeah,
I'm just getting linebackers to move.
Be careful about using the word conflict. Some people don't like that. There's a whole, you already know, there's a whole big thing about that not too long ago. So
gigantic, a huge thing. Yeah, that was
exactly.
But so we're just trying to get movement, right? However we can get movement. It's very easy for a high school kid. And I had someone kind of come to me and tell me this. We had just lost a close game our first year, and I was really frustrated. Like, how do we get over this hump? And they're like, Coach, just remember, you're not coaching against the other coach on the other side of the field. You're coaching against 15 and 16-year-old kids, right? So even if they're not supposed to be reading the guards, as they're pulling, they're probably looking at the guards, right? So as they kind of pull out, you're going to see. Now, we hit the inside slant here, I think, like for a 12-yard gain. I think it's 2nd and 4. But you'll see great footwork by our quarterback, great throw. Pulls it right inside, and then we go down right there. And we'll see it from the I didn't mean to click that. I'm sorry. We'll see it from the tight view here as we go as well. So we motioned him over, right? You'll see our quarterback kind of get set. Now, we teach our quarterbacks on the mesh, on everything that we do. We want to keep our elbows into our body. Okay, so I know back in the day, like Oregon used to like really reach out and like put the ball out there. We keep everything super inside, right? And this goes back to kind of Josh's thing about trying to teach the same thing a million different ways, right? So on our inside zone, when we're going to run inside zone, we keep everything nice and tight. We're rocking from back to forth on our legs, right? Anything inside, power, counter, inside zone. Not only does it follow the same footwork, it follows the same arm mechanics, whether we're under center or in the shotgun. So under center, we're old school. We extend the ball like you're shaking somebody's hand or dealing cards. But in the gun, right, we're keeping everything nice and tight. Now, on our outside stuff, so outside zone, sweep, anything that's more perimeter run game for us, same deal, right? We're going to keep our arms nice and tight, but we're actually going to shuffle for 3 steps. And as we're shuffling, that's while we're making our read. So if you go back here and you watch, I'm sorry, everything's a little lagged over here, so I'm trying to do my best. He almost takes exactly 3 shuffle steps as we're kind of going. So you'll see here, I'm trying to go in slow motion. And then 1, 2, and then he pulls it on 2. He's a little soon, but that's where the opening is, right? So that's what we're teaching. Shuffle, shuffle, and you could literally see his eyes as that backer vacates that area. He's throwing it right where the backer was, right? Backer follows the pulling guard, opens up the slant right over the middle of the field, right? It's just about the easiest play that you could think of in terms of replacing someone who's vacating an area, right? So a couple other ways we run it. We do go under center. I believe this clip's under center. I actually can't see it. So yep. So we do go under center here sometimes. Now, we'll also tell our kids, right? Like for the most part, I don't care if we're in the shotgun or under center. I'm not like, oh, we need to be in the gun. Like, I would like to be in the gun 90% of the time because we could do more read stuff, essentially, right? We could definitely do more read game, whether it be reading a defender for the quarterback to carry the ball, or reading something off of an RPO. I'm just trying to get this video clip back to start here. But our kids were like, hey, I prefer sweep under center. I could see it better. I prefer outside zone under center. I could see it better. Sweet. If there's no RPO tag on it, just go under center. I'll fix the analytics or whatever behind it later. You just go under center if you'd like. Now, the thing I want to watch on this play, our guards do a fantastic job. Our guards do an awesome job. So remember from earlier on, our guards are going to open. They're going to sprint to the sideline. They're going to turn like a track runner as tight as they could off of the tight end. They're going to get up the field and block essentially the first most dangerous man. So let's watch the guards on this play. Yep, so what we're looking at here, right, we want to watch 77 and 55 kind of come around. They're going to turn and sprint to the sideline. 77 is going to probably end some kid's night here. I think he just absolutely obliterates a kid. He's going to play Division II ball at Bloomsburg University. All-state shot put kid as well. But you could see him coming around. He clears out the end, or that outside backer, wherever he originally lined up, and then we're kind of off to the races. Now, from the tight view, let it get to the tight view there for a second. Same deal. So under center, we're teaching our sweep as quarterback is taking snap. He is reversing out, and then obviously dead pitching the ball to the running back. So you could really use these in any system. If you're an under center team, you could use these. If you're a shotgun team like we are, you could use them. I mean, we're a little bit of both. I'm going to go backwards here just a little bit. Press play. We'll go nice and slow. Hopefully we'll see some of this. But yep, good pin block by 77 there. He takes, and that's the reason that we take that endpoint. If you go back and watch 77 on this click right here, if his helmet were anywhere else, he probably loses the guy on this block. But because he puts his helmet to that near shoulder pad, and this guy has to work all the way out throughout his body, he's still in a decent enough position to get him there. Now, is that a little bit of a hold? Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say. But it wasn't called, so we're gonna go with no. And then you watch our tight end and our wing here. Once again, when you put a kid in the wing, he could do any one of three things. He could go help inside. He could help on the defensive end, or here. He's that third lead blocker. He gets in somebody's way, which is always beneficial. And then once again, just watch 77 come around and just obliterate this kid. Like, this is exactly what this should look like in terms of guard play here on our buck sweep. So 77 is the looks like right guard here. So he's coming around. There's 55, and then 77 just whoop. Yeah, that's exactly what we want.
Well, you said, I think at the beginning of this, you want to run this very similar to the old Packer sweep. Well, you see a seal here and a seal here, and you're running the play right in the alley. So yep. I mean, that's a perfect clip right there when he splits those two guards. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I said it's like we're like 1960 Green Bay, Wisconsin here, kind of running through it. But yeah, it worked out great. We had two really athletic guards, like 71. Like I said, he was he's a shot put thrower. He's super athletic. And then 55, he was like our motor on the team. Like he ran full speed everywhere. So it was like, we called this. He was like, man, I'm going to go kill somebody. It's like, okay, great. Like, don't hurt anybody, you know? Yeah, so they were both great. And you have to have athletic guards to run this play. You definitely have to have pulling guards. Okay, so here we're showing it off of motion. Once again, we're in that wing set. So I was doing my best to try to drive motions during the year just because I knew teams were going to be like, okay, they're in wing slot. Like, here comes an RPO or here comes sweep. So here we're running the old West Coast Dragon. So we'll have a slant by number 1, and then we'll have a flat route by number 2. Now, he delays a little bit here. I don't like that. I want him to go quicker into the flat, and he could actually even start in tighter if you would like to. Like, I would have preferred him to have been closer to the tackle box, you know, so he kind of motions over, settle, and then kind of burst into the flat there. But this kid's so fast on the outside, it didn't really matter. He's also going to Bloomsburg to play football and run track. So you'll see here, and this is once again, this is a great clip to show about how we're not going to get called for a penalty for people downfield. Our quarterback actually starts running up before he actually completes the pass. So you'll see here, and we went back and forth about whether or not this was a drop or not in the end zone. It was credited as a touchdown. But he said he threw his hands up to celebrate touchdown. I said, it looks like you threw your hands up to like grab your head like you were upset. So I'll let everybody be the judge out there. But really, you know, this is almost like a triple option. Like, he was going to run that ball if he didn't, you know, if he didn't actually make that throw. And he was, you know, I remember watching film. This was later on in the year. He's like, Coach, is that okay? And I was like, yeah, Cam, if you see an opening that big and you want to pull it and run, like, just pull it and run. Like, don't, you know, like, so many times I feel like coaches will give, you know, like, oh, it needs to be like this. You need to do it like this. It's like, or just like make the play, dude. Like, you're a great athlete. You think you can pull that down and run? Sweet, pull it down and run. So this was a good fit in here, just a little bit of a wrinkle off of that double slant. You can see that open nice and wide. He runs a good slant route, getting his body in between the ball and the man. You know, it was a catch, but I don't know. And really, once again, it kind of times up here that, you know, really they're not more than probably 4 yards downfield. You know, the ball's right here on the, I don't know, let's say 14-yard line, I guess. You know, he's really like, they're not like all the way downfield. Like, they're not 10 yards, 15 yards downfield, you know. So we don't have an official around here who would call that a legal man downfield. I mean, maybe we would, depending on the crew you get, I guess. But, you know, by the time he throws it, they're only about 4 yards downfield, you know, so you know, it makes it definitely a harder call. Then you can see it here from the tight, how it kind of opens up as well. Got that motion across. He's going to shuffle again. He could have done a better job shuffling the quarterback, but he sees that wide open, and then we just drive it in. Definitely looks like a drop there. I'm happy that they didn't they didn't call it for us. All right, so this is against Scranton Prep. This team admittedly was much better, much better than we are at you know, almost every position. This kid, this corner right here, that's London Montgomery. You'll hear about him playing Division I football. This free safety right here, he's 6'5", 220 pounds. He's a preferred walk-on at Penn State next year. They had talent all over the field. They were just better than we were. So we had to get really creative about how we were going to use their scheme and try to be competitive with them, right? So what we did is we knew that they struggled against some counter stuff and some sweep stuff to bunch sets. So I was like, all right, let's get into a bunch set, and we're going to run buck sweep out this way, and then we're going to put our X receiver on a speed out. And really, it's just an access throw. You know, if our quarterback thinks he can make that throw, he's just going to make it. And that's one of those things where, like, we called this was a called play for us. But if it wasn't a called play, our quarterback has the right at the line of scrimmage to change. You know, let's say we come out and we're in this bunch right, and we want to run inside zone, and he sees that the corner on the X receiver is off at 12 yards and he can easily convert it to a hitch. Guess what? He can convert that anytime, catch the ball and throw it. Anytime. The only time he's not allowed to do that is if we're in a situation where we're up by a lot of points, right? That's the only time, and he would know that kind of going in. But this was called because we knew that we could kind of pull that outside linebacker in with the double guard pull, influence the linebackers just a little bit to hopefully get them moving, and then kind of get us a one-on-one with their corner, who we thought was one of their weaker defenders, and you could see right there kind of how we get it. Now, this we had lost our starting guard 71, who was such a great was such a great puller on that last play. So you'll see our backup here, number 70. I'm just going to try to get back to it here. Kind of pulling around, but you could still see the motion. I mean, look how far back, even like an X on a slant or a glance route here would have been solid from that tight alignment. He actually probably could have scooted right up the seam if we had run that. But the corner on inside leverage like that, we just wanted to take the speed out. And you could see it, pretty much wide open for the most part. But yeah, that was another RPO little tag that we ran off of that. So far we have double slant flat, and then just a speed out. It's like that old Wanda Omaha play that you see every NFL team running now. That's out there. Now I wanted to show one clip like this, and I think I have two more clips. The next clip was against an odd front, and we had talked about how we had aligned our fullback in sort of different ways, right? So this way we actually have our fullback aligned to the weak side, and his job on this play, and admittedly he could have done a better job here. He should have been the cleaner, right? He should have been the cleaner. And what we told him this week was he should actually be fitting up and trying to get this other inside linebacker, and he kind of disappeared over the top by the time I had it paused there. But as you're kind of coming back, he's helping on the guy we didn't want to help him on. So he should have been much more up inside, right into this backer right here, just to kind of cut him off on the backside, because I knew that we weren't going to run an RPO off of this week, right? And the way that they were lining up, they really only left us a corner out here. Like, this is the D end over here. They left the corner, and then they bumped the safety over because they were treating this like trips. So we get two pulled out. This is 3rd and 3, trying to get to the outside. It's a 14-7 game, very tight. We're still down, right? And you can see once again, he pretty much hits that alley like on the play before, and he's off to the races. Now that kid, our running back, he was a phenomenal player. If he's, and I hate saying this in public, but he would know it. His grades kept him from going to a much bigger level. He's going to end up at a local D3 school, which is great, and I'm so happy that he's going to college. But he is definitely the cautionary tale of making sure that you're taking care of academics. So, us as coaches, I think sometimes forget that. But I would like to see number 70 do a better job as he's coming out here, going full speed. He looks in too soon. We don't really want to start looking to log back inside until we have passed the line of scrimmage. And if you look him here, he's actually the front side puller, so he's on the right side here. He kind of goes, he's a little timid. This is only his second game playing guard, but he's out there, and it's like, okay, he didn't really get to anybody yet. He kind of stopped his feet on contact, just not exactly what we're looking for. Our tight end didn't do an awesome job either. But this is a good example of, even though we messed up the assignment of the play, we still got people blocked. Right, so we stopped wasting so much time being like, okay, you got to get the plus, you got to get the point, or we have to do this. It's like, go out and block somebody full speed, right? Go out and block somebody full speed. And then this clip here, I'm not sure if I have one or two more. We'll see. This clip here, this is an example of a give on an RPO. So we came back in that motion again. We're going to run double slant. Our quarterback reading, so he's reading number 5, which is the minus defender. And he knows that. So number 5 stays home. We'll go back and just take a look at that. So he doesn't follow the puller. He knows that this RPO is coming. This is one of the best coached teams in the league. They're running a very sophisticated defense that not many around here are definitely running. You could see number 5 literally freeze his feet and check for the double slant. They know it's coming. We've been burning teams on it all year. This is the 6th game of the year, right? So what does that do? Well, it takes him out of the play. It's kind of like when a quarterback carries out his play action fake and pulls that backside backer out with him, right? And pulls that backside backer out with him. So here, we get a give read and a pretty good gain on the play as well. So you can see it a little bit better from the tight angle here. Right, so we'll be reading number 5 here, who's the minus backer. He freezes his feet, and we're following our pullers out to the outside. And then let's see if there's one more. And then we're back to the top. And that's everything that I got. One more thing that I should mention too. As our running back is kind of coming out, and I'm sure everybody's used a version of this adage before, we're a slow to speed through team, right? So we want to be patient till we hit the gap, and then we want to explode through the gap. And we kind of tell our backs it's the same way on buck sweep, right? So obviously an outside play, we're not necessarily looking for a gap on the inside, but right, when we get out there, don't run in front of your pullers. So we would actually tell them, put your hand on the back of the puller, right? You won't pass him by if you have your hand on the back of the puller. So you'll see sometimes, and we actually had more tape of this from last season, but our guys are running and we actually have our hand right on the back of their jersey, waiting essentially for them to make a cut. So that's another good coaching point too, if you're looking or if you're having a problem with the back getting out in front of those pullers as you're repping this out. But thanks for your time. Any questions you have, Coach? I could answer a couple of them here for you, I'm sure.
No, honestly, Coach, you explained that so well that I don't know that I have really any major questions. But this was fantastic. I got nothing but good things to say. So I really appreciate you coming on and spending the time. And we'd love to have you back and do something else here very soon for sure.
Yeah, anytime. I'm happy to talk about anything you'd like.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, guys, once again, please like and subscribe down there below this video and the channel so we can reach more coaches. And be sure to check out the new video series from Ferris State O-line coach Sam Parker on what they do on offense, a 6-part series. They're the D2 national champions this year. So that's a really thorough and in-depth look at what they do for the guy who helped teach it. And, you can also get 20% off your first order with the promo code YouTube20. So that link is down there in the description below. But, Coach, once again, thanks for coming on. This was fantastic stuff. And we will see you guys in the next video.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.